Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're tackling alchemy. And when you hear that word, most of us probably think of, old labs, smoke, maybe wizards, people trying and failing to turn lead into gold.
Right, that's the popular image, isn't it? Dusty failures. But it's really just scratching the surface. Our sources definitely confirm let's call it the official goal, was transmuting metals, base metals to gold.
That was the public pitch anyway.
Exactly. But what our deep dive shows is something much, much deeper. It was this amazing kind of messy mix of ancient philosophy, mystical ideas, and almost accidentally the very beginnings of chemistry.
So we've looked into the history, the medieval period specifically, seen what they did contribute to science, practically speaking. And then there's this whole other angle, the psychological symbolism. Really fascinating stuff.
It is.
So our mission today really is to figure out how this quest for literal gold somehow morphed into a kind of map for, inner transformation, for understanding the self.
Yeah, and it helps to put it in context, Alchemy didn't exist in a vacuum. It's part of this huge, long tradition of what people often just call magic, or the supernatural.
Like dragons and minotaurs.
Sources lumped it all together sometimes, those myths, alchemy, even things like modern psychic powers. Someone pointed out that psychic powers are often just, sci-fi magic.
Magic with a different name.
Pretty much. Alchemy was right there on that fuzzy line between wanting magical control and the slow, hard work of figuring things out empirically.
Okay, let's dig into that medieval reality first. What was actually happening in those labs? Was it more like praying or more like, science experiments?
It was genuinely both, all mixed up. An alchemist's workshop back then, that was cutting-edge applied philosophy. They had this core belief coming down from the Greeks that matter wasn't fixed.
That you could change it fundamentally.
Right. With the right recipe, the right heat, you could push base metals towards perfection, towards gold. The motivation seems obvious, doesn't it? Wealth, influence, gold.
But here's the kicker, the big irony. They never actually did it. Our sources are crystal clear. No real tincture or artificial gold was ever produced. Ever.
And that failure is the key to their real legacy, bizarrely enough. Because they were so obsessed with this impossible goal, they had to tinker constantly. They distilled, they ground things up, they purified over and over. And in doing all that, totally by accident, they stumbled onto new chemicals, invented essential lab gear, glassware, furnaces, and figured out basic processes we still use in chemistry today. Their biggest scientific wins came directly from chasing a fantasy.
So the practical stuff they left us wasn't alchemical at all. It was just chemistry. And this wasn't some fringe cult, right? Serious people were involved.
Whoa, absolutely. Really significant figures. Think about Roger Bacon. He's the first European credited with accurately describing how to make gunpowder. That came straight out of alchemical work. Massive implications. Or Paracelsus, he totally rejected the old Greek ideas about elements and started using specific chemical compounds as medicine. He basically invented chemical pharmacy, applying his alchemical knowledge.
And it wasn't just scientists, even religious figures got involved.
Yes, that's noted too. Thomas Aquinas, a towering figure in theology, officially sanctioned by the church. He was allowed to study alchemy for a time.
Before the church got nervous about it.
Right, before they later condemned it. But it just shows how integrated it was, even at the highest intellectual levels.
Which brings us right back to that central puzzle. If these smart, dedicated people, generation after generation, saw that making gold was impossible, why keep doing it? Why dedicate your whole life to the opus, the great work?
Exactly. If the goal wasn't physical gold anymore.
And the work had to be something else, internal.
It had to be. That persistence, that dedication, it kind of turned the whole quest inward. The lab, the chemicals, the processes, they became a mirror, reflecting something happening deep inside the alchemist's own mind, their own psyche.
Okay, so let's get into that, this idea of inner transformation, the psychological side. How did that work?
Well, the key concept here is something psychologists call projection. The alchemists, without even realizing it, were projecting their own inner process of becoming a whole person, the journey towards what we now call individuation, onto the chemical stuff happening in their flasks and retorts.
So cleaning up the metal was like cleaning up the soul.
In a metaphorical sense, yes. Purifying the confused, messy base metal of the psyche into the gold of a unified, integrated personality.
Individuation. Can you maybe simplify that a bit? It sounds quite technical.
Sure. Think of it as just becoming who you truly are, integrating all the different parts of yourself, conscious and unconscious, into a stable center, the self. It's about wholeness.
Hmm.
The alchemists were searching for the homo totus, the whole man, and they knew instinctively it wasn't going to be easy.
Right, they didn't expect a quick fix. They had a name for that difficult path, didn't they?
It did, a really evocative one.
Yeah.
A longissima, via, the very long path. They understood that the road to wholeness wasn't a straight line.
Not logical.
No, it was snake-like, they said. Full of twists, turns, setbacks, crises. You had to go through the darkness, the confusion. It demanded everything you had.
And that winding, difficult, paradoxical journey. It finds its perfect symbol in Mercurius, right? Quicksilver. Why was this one unstable element so absolutely central to everything?
Mercurius. It's the ultimate paradox in a bottle, isn't it? It's liquid, but it's a metal. It slips through your fingers. It's poisonous, but it was also seen as a key to healing.
Dual nature.
Completely dual. And that made it the perfect symbol for the unconscious and the process of transformation. It was the guide, Hermes Psychopompos, the leader of souls, but also the trickster, the tempter.
The thing that could lead you astray.
Or drive you to despair. It could shatter your experiments, ruin your work. It forced the alchemists to confront their own internal contradictions, their own light and shadow.
So it embodies the chaos you start with, but somehow it's also the goal. That seems weird.
It is weird, but that's the heart of it. Mercurius is everything in the process. It's the starting point, the prima materia, the initial messy, undifferentiated stuff you begin with. But it's also the end point, or at least the agent of transformation, the lapis philosophorum, the philosopher's stone itself.
Okay, the stone, the ultimate goal, the thing that transforms everything, the perfected self, maybe? But the way they describe the lapis, it wasn't always grand and golden, was it?
No, and that's where the psychology gets really interesting. Even though it was the highest achievement, the stone was often described using this word exilis. It means like humble, uncomely, ordinary.
Something you'd overlook.
Exactly. They'd say it's the stone thrown out onto the dunghill, but which becomes the head of the corner. It's a powerful statement about values. Meaning they realized true value wasn't in the flashy, obvious stuff, the aurum volgi, the gold of the crowd. It was in the aurum nostrum, our gold, the philosophical gold hidden in the rejected, the humble, the shadow parts of the self.
Finding treasure in the trash, basically.
Likely.
Psychologically speaking. Okay, in this quest for the unified self, the lapis, it often involves specific shapes, didn't it? Mandalas come up a lot.
Yes, the mandala is crucial. The word itself refers to a ritual or magic circle, like the kilkor or yantra in Eastern traditions, used for centering, meditation.
But for the alchemists, it wasn't just drawing circles.
No, the real mandala was an inner image, something the imagination spontaneously produced, especially during times of psychic chaos or disturbance. It was the mind trying to find order, trying to find its center.
A picture of the soul trying to balance itself.
Precisely. It represents the psychic center of the personality, the self, which, importantly, they understood, was bigger than just the conscious ego.
Okay, so the circle represents wholeness, the goal. But then why all the focus on the number 4? There seems to be this tension between 3 and 4 in the texts.
The quaternity. Yes, that tension is absolutely fundamental. 3 often relates to the Christian Trinity, a symbol of a certain kind of spiritual perfection, unity. But the alchemical process itself is almost always described in terms of 4.
4 elements, 4 stages.
4 colors, black, white, red, yellow. The quaternity represents the necessary complexity you have to work through. It's the symbol of conflict, of opposites held in tension.
So you have to deal with the 4 before you get to the 1.
You have to engage with the multiplicity, the conflicting parts, before you can achieve the simplicity and unity of the lapis. If you try to skip that stage, you get what the sources call a disturbed mandala. Something's off balance.
And sometimes a specific part is missing.
Often, yeah. It's pointed out that frequently the missing 4th element is symbolized by the color blue, which connects to figures like the Virgin Mary, or perhaps the feminine aspect of the unconscious, especially in men. It signals an imbalance, a part of the whole personality that hasn't been integrated.
So a balanced mind draws a circle. A mind working through its issues draws maybe a square or 4 points. And this whole back and forth is also symbolized by circular movement itself.
Exactly. The circulatio, the circulation. It's one of their favorite images for psychological transformation. This constant cycle of rising up ascensus and going down dissensus.
Like distilling and condensing.
Metaphorically, yes. It represents the psyche's ongoing effort to integrate its high and low parts, its conscious and unconscious elements. And it also required certain virtues: constantia, perseverance through the cycles, and humilitas, the humility to accept the descents, the dark phases.
Okay, so when you look at all this, the purification, the internal effort, the quest for wholeness, it sounds an awful lot like religion. How did the alchemists see their work compared to, say, the Christian path?
That's a crucial distinction the sources make. The fundamental difference is about who needs saving and who does the saving.
How so?
Well, in Christianity, generally speaking, humanity is fallen, needs redemption, and Christ performs the opus, the work of salvation. In alchemy, it's flipped.
Flipped how?
Man becomes the redeemer. The alchemist performs the opus not to save himself, but to liberate the divine spark, the anima mundi, or world soul, which they believed was trapped, slumbering inside matter itself.
Whoa. So they're saving the soul in the chemicals.
That was the idea. And the result wasn't the son of man, but the filius macrocosmi, the son of the macrocosm, the perfected substance born from the union of spirit and matter.
That is incredibly bold. Almost sounds like heresy, claiming their lab work was a sacred act of redemption.
It shows you the cosmic significance they felt their work had. And maybe the most striking example of this is that figure, Mercurius Sibonensis.
What did he do?
He actually wrote an alchemical paraphrase of the Catholic Mass. He took the traditional liturgy and swapped out the prayers, replacing them with invocations about the sacred art of alchemy.
Seriously, he rewrote the Mass for alchemy.
He did. He literally equated the opus alchemicum with the opus divinum, the divine work of the Mass. For him, the alchemist was the priest.
The operator, performing the ritual.
Exactly. And this ties into why they put so much stress on the alchemist's personal state. Success depended ex operantis from the work of the operator. It wasn't about divine grace alone. It was about the purity, the dedication, the psychological condition of the person doing the work.
So you had to be worthy.
You had to prepare yourself. That's why things like meditation, fasting, prayer were considered essential prerequisites for the alchemical work. You were stepping into the role of the redeemer in your own small cosmos, your laboratory. Your inner state determined the outer result.
It makes sense now why it persisted. The goal wasn't just gold, it was, well, everything. So, wrapping up, alchemy was this grand failure, practically speaking, if the goal was just gold.
Utter failure on that front.
But, paradoxically, an incredible success in mapping out the inner world, the journey towards psychological wholeness. All that time spent boiling and mixing stuff was really about transforming the self.
It's an amazing example of how the human psyche works, isn't it? How we project our inner struggles onto the outer world and find symbols for them. And those symbols they use, like the unicorn, they capture this duality perfectly.
The unicorn?
Yeah.
How does that fit in? Seems a bit mythical for chemistry.
Well, it wasn't about chemistry by then. The unicorn was a potent symbol for Mercurius in his purified, perfected state.
Oh, okay.
Its horn, often identified with the narwhal tusk, actually symbolized purity, piercing, insight, perfection. It linked to the anthropos, the idea of the complete primordial man or even a god-man figure. It shows how these ancient pagan symbols, Gnostic ideas, Christian motifs all got woven together in alchemy to represent these deep paradoxes.
So the unicorn is like the humble stone, the exilis, finally recognized for its true, supreme value.
Exactly. It's the ultimate symbol of singularity and perfection emerging from the messy depths.
The singular substance, the singular self.
That's the quest. The alchemists genuinely seemed to believe their work was an unconscious recapitulation, like they were unknowingly reenacting humanity's oldest search for self-understanding.
Which leaves us with a pretty big thought to chew on, doesn't it?
I think so. If the human psyche contains these autonomous psychic facts, these core symbols like the mandala, the quaternity, the unicorn, that just keep popping up across cultures, across thousands of years.
Regardless of whether we're talking about medieval alchemy or modern psychology.
Right. What does that tell us about the actual core of the whole man, that stable, unchanging center that maybe we're still trying to fully realize long after the last alchemical fires went out?
Orion and Aura, delivering the collaborative call to assembly.